The first thing Daniel Cross noticed was that the desert had stopped making sound. That was impossible, because the Nevada desert was never truly silent. Even in the deepest hours before sunrise, when the sky was black and the highway looked like a dead river of asphalt, there was always something. Wind dragging sand across the road, insects ticking in the dry brush, distant coyotes calling from the hills, the low electric hum of hidden power lines buried beneath military land. But that night, 5 miles from the outer perimeter of Area 51, everything went quiet at once, as if the world had inhaled and forgotten how to breathe. Daniel stood beside his old white van on the shoulder of the extraterrestrial highway with a camera in one hand and a dying flashlight in the other. He had driven 8 hours from Los Angeles to film what he called the last honest Area 51 documentary on the internet. His channel was not huge, but it was growing fast. People loved fear when it came with a thumbnail, a title, and a promise that the truth was being hidden from them. Daniel knew that better than anyone. He did not believe most conspiracy stories. He believed in editing, timing, suspense, and human curiosity. He believed a good video could make a normal road look haunted and a distant light look like an alien aircraft. He believed the truth was usually boring. Then the radio in his van turned on by itself. Static cracked through the speakers. Daniel slowly turned toward the open driver's door. The keys were in his pocket. The dashboard was dark. The battery had been acting up all week, yet the radio glowed with a soft red light, and through the static came a voice so weak it sounded buried under miles of stone. "Do not record the sky," it whispered. Daniel did not move. The voice returned, closer this time, trembling with panic. "Record the ground." The radio died. For several seconds, Daniel heard only his own breathing. Then, beneath his boots, something answered. A vibration passed through the dirt. Not an earthquake, not traffic. Something deep, slow, rhythmic, like a giant heart beating under the desert. He raised his camera. The flashlight flickered out. In the darkness beyond the road, something enormous moved beneath the sand. Daniel should have run. Any sane person would have thrown the camera into the van, slammed the door, and driven until the sun came up. But Daniel was not thinking like a sane person. He was thinking like a creator who had just found the one thing every creator secretly prays for: proof. He pressed record. The camera screen glowed blue against his face. At first, it captured nothing but darkness and the thin, pale line of the highway. Then the sand in the distance lifted in a long ripple, stretching across the desert like a wave moving under skin. The ground rose, not violently, but carefully, as if something below was pushing upward and listening. A red light blinked far away, then another, then hundreds. They were not in the sky. They were under the ground. Daniel whispered, "What am I looking at?" The camera microphone caught a sound behind him. 3 knocks. Not on the van, not on wood, on the road. Daniel turned slowly. A woman stood in the middle of the highway. She wore a grey military jacket with no insignia. Her hair was white, though her face looked no older than 40. Sand clung to her boots. Her eyes reflected Daniel's camera light like an animal's. "You need to stop filming," she said. Daniel almost dropped the camera. "Who are you?" The woman looked past him toward the distant red lights under the sand. "You are standing on a door." Daniel laughed once, because fear sometimes comes out that way. "A door to what?" The woman stepped closer. "To the reason they built Area 51. Before Daniel could answer, the horizon exploded with white light. For half a second, the desert became daytime. The mountains appeared in perfect detail, the fences, the warning signs, the empty road, the woman's face, and behind her, far beyond the restricted perimeter, something rose from the ground inside the military base. Not a plane, not a tower. A black structure, smooth and curved, breaking through the desert floor without sound. Then darkness returned. The woman grabbed Daniel's wrist. "They woke it up again," she said, "and now it knows we are still here." Daniel pulled back. "Still here? Who is we?" The woman stared at him as the ground began to tremble. Humanity. The official story, if anyone had asked the government the next morning, would have been simple. A minor seismic event had occurred in Lincoln County. Military training operations had caused temporary road closures. Social media videos circulating online were digitally manipulated. Residents were advised to ignore rumors, but by sunrise, there were too many videos to ignore. A truck driver had recorded red pulses moving under the sand near Groom Lake. A group of tourists camping outside Rachel had filmed black helicopters flying without lights, chasing something that never appeared on radar. An amateur radio operator in Utah captured the same voice Daniel heard, repeating the same sentence in 12 different languages. Record the ground. A family in Arizona posted a clip of every television in their home turning on at 3:17 a.m. to show a single image of a black sphere floating in a concrete chamber. The internet did what the internet always does when fear arrives wearing mystery. It multiplied it. By noon, Area 51 was trending in every country. By evening, the first disappearances began. Daniel Cross did not post his footage immediately. That was the first intelligent decision he made. The second was letting the woman drag him into a drainage tunnel hidden beneath an abandoned service road while military drones screamed overhead. Her name was Mara Venn. At least, that was the name she gave him. She claimed to be a former analyst from a program that did not exist, assigned to a facility beneath Area 51 that did not exist, studying an object that official science could not describe without sounding like religion. Daniel did not believe her until she showed him the scar behind her left ear, a circular burn mark shaped like an eclipse. "They put that on everyone who hears the first signal," she said. Daniel touched the side of his own head instinctively. Mara noticed. "Not yet," she said. "If you are lucky, you will die before the mark appears. That is your comforting version? That is the honest version." The tunnel smelled of rust, dust, and hot metal. Mara moved quickly, as if she had walked it before. Daniel followed, clutching his camera like a weapon. He wanted answers, but every answer Mara gave made reality feel thinner. Area 51, she explained, was not built because something crashed in the desert. The crash stories were useful distractions. Roswell, weather balloons, recovered saucers, alien bodies in jars, reverse-engineered aircraft, all of it was noise. Some of it contained fragments of truth, enough to keep curious people looking upward. That was the trick. Make the world obsessed with the sky, while the real secret waited underground. In 1947, after a series of deep tremors beneath Groom Lake, survey teams discovered a perfectly circular shaft hidden under sandstone. The shaft descended farther than any natural cave system in the region. Its walls were black, smooth, and warm to the touch. Every tool lowered into it returned covered in symbols that vanished after exposure to sunlight. The first military team sent down reported hearing music. The second team reported seeing people they loved standing at the bottom, calling them by childhood names. The third team did not return. When they finally sent cameras, the footage showed a chamber nearly 1,000 feet beneath the desert. At its center floated a black sphere 3 meters wide. It did not reflect light. It did not cast a shadow. It produced no heat, no radiation, no magnetic signature. Yet every animal brought within 500 meters of it died of cardiac failure. Every human who approached it dreamed the same dream, a dark ocean beneath the earth and lights moving under the water. The military named it Object Z. The scientists named it the Seed. The men who guarded it simply called it the wrong thing. Daniel stopped walking. "No," he said. "No, that sounds like a creepypasta." Mara turned back. "You think horror stories come from imagination. They don't. They come from memory." The tunnel shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere far above them, an alarm wailed through the night. "What is happening?" Daniel whispered. Mara looked toward the direction of the base. "The seed is opening." For 79 years, humanity had misunderstood Object Z. Scientists tried to classify it as a machine, a probe, a weapon, a spacecraft, a communication device. They measured it, froze it, heated it, bombarded it with radiation, surrounded it with magnets, placed it in vacuum, played sounds to it, sent mathematical patterns, prayer recordings, whale songs, nuclear launch codes, and lullabies. Nothing worked. Then, in 1963, a young physicist named Dr. Elias Rourke made one small change. Instead of sending a signal to the sphere, he placed 3 sleeping volunteers near it and recorded their brain activity. All 3 volunteers dreamed of the same underground ocean. All 3 described the same black towers rising from the water. All 3 woke up speaking languages they had never learned. One died within an hour. One became violent and tried to break through the containment glass with his bare hands. The third survived long enough to write a message on the floor using blood from his nose. "We are not above you." That was the moment the program changed. Object Z was not communicating across space, it was communicating through consciousness. Dreams were not side effects, they were the channel. The government buried the program deeper, created false projects above it, and built what the public would one day call Area 51 as a mask over an older wound. Engineers expanded underground levels. Psychologists studied dreams. Linguists decoded impossible symbols. Soldiers guarded doors they were forbidden to open. Over time, a terrifying theory formed. The sphere was not an object, it was a lock. And somewhere below the lock was a door. Daniel listened to Mara's story with the half-numb expression of a man trying not to believe the evidence of his own life. His camera continued recording. The red light blinked in the tunnel darkness. Absurdly ordinary, as if it were filming a product review instead of the collapse of human certainty. "How do you know all this?" he asked. Mara did not answer immediately. They reached a metal ladder leading upward. Above it, a circular hatch vibrated with distant impacts. "Because I opened the door once," she said. In 2011, Mara Venn was recruited into a classified psychological analysis unit after detecting hidden patterns in mass dream reports across the American Southwest. People with no connection to one another were describing the same place: an underground sea, black towers, pale figures standing beneath the water, and a red star burning inside the earth. The reports were dismissed publicly as internet contamination, but Mara proved many of the dreams occurred before the posts appeared online. Her work brought her to Level 0, the deepest section under Area 51. She expected advanced aircraft. She expected alien metal. She expected secrets. She did not expect a cathedral beneath the desert. That was how she described it. A vast chamber carved into black stone, so large its ceiling disappeared into darkness. Object Z floated at the center above a circular platform surrounded by trenches filled with still black water. The walls carried symbols that seemed to rearrange when viewed indirectly. People spoke quietly down there, not out of respect, but because loud voices made the walls answer. Mara's job was to review dreams from staff exposed to the object. At first, the dreams were symbolic: oceans, towers, doors. Then they became personal. A technician dreamed of his dead mother asking him to unlock a basement door. A soldier dreamed he was a child again, digging in his backyard until he found a human hand made of glass. A linguist dreamed a shadow wearing his face taught him how to pronounce a word that made his teeth bleed when he woke up. Mara began dreaming too. In her dream, she stood on the shore of the Black Ocean. The water was perfectly still. Far away, towers rose like broken fingers. Beneath the surface, lights moved slowly, circling. Then a woman identical to Mara emerged from the water and said, "You forgot us." Mara reported the dream. Her superiors marked her file with a red symbol. 3 days later, they brought her to the chamber and asked her to speak to the sphere. "What did you say?" Daniel asked. Mara climbed the ladder without looking back. "I said hello." The hatch opened into an abandoned maintenance shed half buried in sand. Dawn was bleeding across the horizon, turning the desert grey and pink. In the distance, Area 51 looked calm. Too calm. No explosions, no visible chaos, just fences, mountains, radar domes, and empty air. Then Daniel saw the sky above the base bend. It was subtle at first, like heat shimmer, but it grew wider, forming a circular distortion over the mountains. Clouds twisted inward. Birds, or things shaped like birds, fell from the air. The sun seemed to dim around the edges. Mara cursed under her breath. They reached Phase 2. What is Phase 2? Memory leakage. Daniel almost laughed again, but his throat was too dry. Across the desert, hundreds of tiny shapes began rising from the ground. Not machines, not soldiers, people. They stood motionless in the sand, scattered for miles around the base. Daniel zoomed in with his camera. His blood went cold. They were not strangers. One was his grandfather, who had died when Daniel was 16. Another was a girl from his high school who had drowned during a lake trip. Another was a man Daniel recognized from a missing persons documentary he had edited years earlier. Dead people, all standing in the desert, all facing Area 51. Mara yanked the camera down. Do not look at their faces. Those are people. No, those are hooks. The first rule of Level 0, Mara said, was never trust recognition. The phenomenon under the desert did not create life. It created invitation. It wore memory the way a hunter wears camouflage. It reached into human minds and pulled out shapes we would approach willingly. Dead family, lost friends, childhood pets, lovers, heroes, gods. It did not care which mask worked. It only needed one step closer. Daniel looked again despite her warning. His mother stood 20 feet from the shed. She had been dead for 4 years. She wore the blue hospital gown he last saw her in. Her hair was gone from chemotherapy. Her face was thin but smiling. She lifted one hand gently, exactly the way she used to wave from the kitchen window when he left for school. Daniel's camera slipped from his hand. "Danny," she said. Mara slapped him hard. The sound snapped the world back into focus. The figure of his mother flickered. For a fraction of a second, Daniel saw what stood underneath the memory. Something tall and white, with too many joints and no eyes, folding itself into the shape of grief. Then it was his mother again. "Come here," she whispered. Mara fired a flare gun at the ground between them. Red fire burst across the sand. The figure recoiled, not from heat, but from light. "Run," Mara said. They ran. Behind them, Daniel's mother screamed in his voice. The video would later become the most analyzed footage in internet history, though for the first 12 hours, almost nobody believed it. Daniel uploaded only 37 seconds from a motel outside Tonopah using a stolen laptop Mara bought with cash. The clip showed the desert distortion, the dead standing in rows, and the thing wearing his mother's face for one frame when the flare exploded. He titled it simply, "Record the Ground." The upload reached 10 million views in 40 minutes. Then it vanished. Copies appeared. They vanished too. Accounts posting it were suspended, restored, corrupted, then filled with strange images of black water and red symbols. People who watched the footage reported the same dream that night. Some woke with nosebleeds. Some heard knocking under their floors. Some found sand in their beds despite living in cities thousands of miles from any desert. The world began to tilt. News anchors smiled too much while explaining nothing was wrong. Military spokesmen repeated that all activities at the Nevada test and training range were routine. Scientists invited onto television programs discussed mass hysteria and digital misinformation. But behind them, in live studio windows, viewers noticed figures standing outside in the dark. Tall figures, motionless, waiting. By the second night, the phenomenon was no longer confined to Nevada. In Tokyo, every screen in Shibuya Crossing briefly displayed a black sphere rotating above water. In Paris, tourists near the catacombs heard thousands of voices whispering from sealed tunnels. In Cairo, seismographs beneath the Giza Plateau detected rhythmic pulses matching those recorded under Area 51. In Antarctica, a research station went silent after transmitting one sentence: "The towers are under the ice." In Los Angeles, Daniel Cross became the most wanted man on the internet and the most hunted man in America. Mara told him they had less than 24 hours before the military found them, or the seed did. "Why me?" Daniel asked as they drove north in a stolen pickup. "Why did the radio talk to me?" Mara watched the road. "Because you were recording." "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense. Human attention is a doorway. Cameras are attention machines. Every lens pointed at the phenomenon gives it another path into the world." Daniel looked at the camera bag between his feet. "Then why not destroy every camera?" Mara smiled without humor. "Can you destroy every eye?" They drove through a landscape that no longer seemed entirely real. The desert repeated itself in impossible patterns. The same Joshua tree appeared 3 times along different roads. A gas station they passed at noon stood again at sunset, abandoned, lights flickering, same cracked sign, same crow sitting on the pump. At one point, the road ahead vanished into black water for several seconds before returning to asphalt. Daniel tried not to sleep. Every time his eyelids lowered, he saw the ocean, the black water, the towers, the lights below, and something vast moving upward. Mara planned to reach a buried relay station once used by the original Level 0 scientists. If they could access its analog transmitters, they might broadcast one file worldwide before the network scrubbed it. Not a video, not a conspiracy rant, a map, the locations of every underground structure linked to the seed. "People need to know where the doors are," Daniel said. Mara shook her head. "No, people need to know where not to look." That was the cruel paradox. Humanity survived because most people were ignorant. Most doors remained closed because nobody stared at them long enough. Myths protected us by disguising knowledge as stories. Forbidden caves, bottomless wells, underworld rivers, sleeping gods, cities beneath the sea. All warnings, softened by time until people called them folklore. The ancient world had not invented monsters. It had remembered them. At 11:40 p.m. they reached the relay station. It sat beneath an abandoned weather monitoring facility, surrounded by dead solar panels and chain-link fence. Inside, dust covered everything. Old consoles, rotary phones, reel-to-reel machines. Maps with red pins marking locations across the globe. Mara moved through it like a ghost returning to her own grave. Daniel found photographs pinned to a corkboard. Teams of scientists smiling in the 1960s. Then fewer smiling in the 1970s. Then no photographs after 1988. One image showed Dr. Elias Rourke standing beside a younger woman who looked exactly like Mara. Daniel lifted the photo. "Who is this?" Mara's face changed. "My mother. You said you opened the door." Mara stared at the picture. She opened it first. Elias Rourke had not died in a lab accident, Mara explained. He had vanished during the first successful contact event in 1988. The sphere opened for 7 minutes, not physically. Reality around it unfolded, revealing a passage not through space, but through memory. Rourke stepped toward it because he believed contact would transform humanity. Mara's mother tried to stop him. The team outside the chamber heard thousands of voices speaking through the intercom at once. Then the door closed. Rourke was gone. So was Mara's mother. But the next morning, every person in Level 0 received a handwritten note under their door in Mara's mother's handwriting. "Do not let them remember the way back." From that day forward, the program's purpose changed from communication to suppression. Dream research became dream control. Signals were buried. Witnesses erased. False UFO stories amplified. Anyone who got too close was redirected toward the sky. Because the old ones were not coming from stars. They were returning through the oldest roads inside the human mind. Daniel sat heavily in a chair. "So what happens now?" Mara turned on the analog system. Machines clicked awake. Dusty reels spun. A green waveform trembled across a monitor. "Now we send the warning." A speaker crackled. A voice came through. Mara's voice. But Mara had not spoken. "Too late," it said. Every light in the station went out. The floor below them knocked 3 times. Daniel and Mara froze. The knocking came again. 3 slow knocks. From beneath the concrete. Then the walls began to sweat black water. The relay station filled with whispers. Not loud, not dramatic, personal. Daniel heard his mother, his father, his first girlfriend, his own voice as a child. Thousands of memories speaking at once from the dark. Mara grabbed his face between both hands. "Listen to me. They can only use what you answer. Do not speak to anything you recognize." A shape moved behind her. Daniel saw Mara's mother standing in the doorway, older than in the photograph. Wet hair hanging across her face. Eyes full of sorrow. "Mara," the woman whispered. Mara's grip tightened. Daniel expected her to turn. She did not. "Mara, please," the woman said. "I waited so long." Mara's eyes filled with tears. "I know. Open the relay. Let me through." "I can't. I am still your mother." Mara closed her eyes. "No," she whispered. "You are wearing her." The thing smiled. The station exploded into motion. Consoles sparked. Maps ripped from walls. Black water poured upward through cracks in the floor, flowing against gravity. Daniel grabbed the broadcast tape while Mara fired red flares into the hallway. Each burst of light revealed more figures crowded in the darkness. Soldiers, scientists, children, strangers, all wearing stolen faces, all standing too still. They fought their way to the transmission room. Mara slammed the door behind them and jammed a metal chair under the handle. The door bent inward immediately, not from impact, but as if the material had softened. Daniel loaded the tape. The transmitter whined. "How long?" Mara shouted. 60 seconds! The door bulged, faces pressed through the metal without breaking it. Daniel hit record. For the first time, he did not perform for an audience. No dramatic voice, no thumbnail energy, no promise of hidden truth. He spoke like a terrified human being begging other humans to survive. "My name is Daniel Cross. If you are hearing this, do not search the signal. Do not analyze the audio. Do not stare at the symbols. The restricted zones are not hiding visitors from space. They are containing doors under the Earth. Area 51 is only one of them. The phenomenon uses memory, grief, fear, curiosity, and attention. If you see someone you know in a place they cannot be, do not answer. If you hear knocking from below, leave. If your screen shows black water, turn it away. Do not record the sky. Do not record the ground. Stop looking," Mara shouted from behind him. "Daniel!" The door tore open. The thing wearing Mara's mother entered first. Behind it came dozens more. Daniel slammed the broadcast switch. The signal went out. Not through the internet, not through satellites, through old radio, through analog emergency bands, through shortwave frequencies, through abandoned towers, through every forgotten machine still capable of carrying a human voice without asking permission from the modern world. For 11 minutes, Daniel's warning played across the planet. Then the relay station disappeared. Not exploded, not burned. Disappeared. Satellite images later showed only a circular black stain in the desert where the facility had been. No debris, no bodies, no tracks, only sand. And in the center of the stain, written in perfect English, were 5 words carved into glassy stone. "Thank you for teaching them." The warning did not save the world. Not completely. But it changed how the world ended. Millions ignored it. Of course they did. Curiosity is humanity's original sin and greatest gift. People searched harder. They slowed the audio, enhanced the frames, printed the symbols, made reaction videos, built theories, sold merchandise, created filters that made users look like echoes, turned the end of reality into content, and every view opened the door wider. But millions more listened. They covered mirrors. They turned off screens. They stopped sharing the footage. They refused to answer voices in the dark. They taught children not to follow familiar faces outside at night. They avoided the places marked on the leaked map. For the first time in recorded history, humanity began fighting an invasion by looking away. Governments could no longer hide everything. Too many events had occurred at once. Too many cities had seen blackouts. Too many families had lost someone who walked into a basement after hearing a loved one call from below. Official explanations collapsed under the weight of shared terror. The president addressed the nation 3 days after the first signal. He did not mention aliens. He did not mention Area 51. He simply said, "There are locations on Earth that must remain undisturbed." That sentence was enough. The age of upward wonder ended. The age of downward fear began. Area 51 became the most guarded place on the planet. Not to keep people out of hangars, but to keep something under the desert from coming up. Around the base, the military built circles of light so bright the night itself seemed wounded. Giant speakers played white noise across the sand to disrupt the whispers. Roads were destroyed, towns evacuated, airspace closed permanently. Anyone approaching the perimeter was not arrested. They were sedated, examined, and asked one question before being released. Who did you see? Those who answered a dead person's name were never released. Months passed, then a year. The world adapted, because humans adapt to anything. People still went to work. Lovers still fought and reconciled. Children still learned to ride bicycles. Music still played. Videos still went viral. But every culture gained new habits. Doors to basements were sealed in older homes. Sleep clinics monitored shared dreams. Emergency broadcasts included instructions for memory contamination. New apps detected forbidden frequency patterns and automatically destroyed recordings. Schools taught the difference between remembering and being called. Daniel Cross became a myth. Some believed he died in the relay station. Some believed he was taken below. Some believed he had been an agent all along. His final broadcast was copied, transcribed, remixed, mocked, worshipped, banned, restored, and memorized. In some towns, people played it every night before sleeping, like a prayer for the digital age. Mara Venn became even stranger in public memory. No official record of her existed, no birth certificate, no employment file, no death certificate. Only Daniel's footage, where she appeared in the desert, warned him, fought beside him, and vanished with the station. But 3 years after the signal, a boy in a small town in Oregon found an old camcorder at a garage sale. Inside was a tape labeled with a single word, Mara. His parents told him not to play it. He did anyway. The footage showed darkness at first, then a dim red light, then a corridor made of black stone. Water dripped upward along the walls. Far away, something knocked 3 times. Mara's face appeared close to the lens. She looked older, exhausted, alive. "If this reaches anyone," she whispered. Daniel was right about the doors, but he was wrong about one thing. She looked over her shoulder. Behind her, in the darkness, stood the black sphere. It was cracked open like an egg. Inside was not machinery, not light, not emptiness. Inside was a human eye, huge, wet, awake. Mara turned back to the camera. "They were not trying to enter our world," she said. "They were trying to make us remember that we are already inside theirs." The tape ended. The boy's parents found him in the basement an hour later, standing perfectly still in front of a wall that had never had a door before. Now it did. From the other side, someone was knocking. 3 times, slowly, patiently. And beneath the floor, impossibly far below, the desert listened. The boy's name was Noah Bell, and for the rest of his life, people would argue about whether he was the first person to survive the second signal or the first person to bring it home. His parents never agreed on what they saw that night. His father insisted the basement wall had always been solid concrete, painted grey, cracked near the boiler, and stained by years of moisture. His mother swore there had been a door there when they bought the house, though photographs proved otherwise. That was how the phenomenon worked once it entered a family. It did not only change places, it changed memory around the places, bending certainty until every witness became unreliable to themselves. Noah stood before the new door with one hand raised, as if waiting for permission to knock back. He was 11 years old. He loved dinosaurs, old cameras, and sleeping with the hallway light on. When his father grabbed him by the shoulders, Noah did not blink. His pupils were too wide. His lips moved silently, repeating words nobody in the room could hear. From the other side of the door came 3 slow knocks. Noah smiled. His mother screamed. His father carried him upstairs while the door in the basement continued knocking, not louder, not faster, but with unbearable patience. Jay did not answer immediately. The desert outside the motel window was no longer dark in a normal way. It was black like an ocean, deep and moving, as if the night itself had lowered itself onto the ground. Far away, beyond the lonely highway, red lights pulsed behind the mountains surrounding Area 51. Not aircraft lights, not emergency lights. Something older, slower, breathing beneath the earth. Rachel checked the pistol hidden under her jacket, but the gesture felt useless. No weapon made by human hands could matter against whatever had begun to climb from level 0. Still, she moved because stopping meant accepting death. "We have one chance," she said. The signal opened the first door. The same signal can close it, but only from inside the chamber. Jay stared at her. "You want to go under the base?" "No," Rachel whispered. "I wanted to die before ever going back there." They drove toward the restricted zone without headlights. The storm had vanished, leaving the desert too quiet. Every few minutes, Jay saw silhouettes standing on the ridges. Tall, thin shapes watching the car pass. They did not chase them. They did not need to. They already knew where Jay was going. The old maintenance entrance was buried behind a collapsed service road, hidden by sand and rusted fencing. Rachel had used it once, years ago, when she escaped the program and faked her own death. The tunnel beyond smelled of metal, dust, and something sweetly rotten. They descended for almost an hour, deeper than any building should go, deeper than any government should ever dig. The walls changed as they moved lower. Concrete became black stone. Black stone became smooth, seamless material that reflected no light. Jay's phone, though powered off, vibrated in his pocket. When he pulled it out, the dead screen displayed a single sentence: "You came back." Rachel snatched it from his hand and crushed it under her boot. "Do not answer anything down here," she said. "Not voices, not memories, not people you love." Jay wanted to ask what she meant, but then he heard his mother calling from the tunnel ahead. She had been dead for 12 years. Her voice was perfect, warm, close, begging him to follow. Rachel slapped him so hard he nearly fell. "That is not her," they continued. The deeper they went, the more the tunnel filled with impossible sounds. Children laughing behind walls, soldiers praying in languages Jay did not know, machines turning where no machines existed. Then they reached the observation deck above level 0. The chamber below was enormous, larger than a cathedral, carved into the heart of the earth. At its center stood the sphere, no longer floating, but resting inside a circular depression. Around it, hundreds of figures knelt in perfect silence. Some wore military uniforms, some wore lab coats. Some looked ancient, wrapped in decayed cloth and armor from civilizations that should never have met. Their heads turned at the same time toward Jay and Rachel, not fast, not surprised, patient, expected. General Hayes stood beside the sphere, alive but changed. His skin was pale and stretched, his eyes black from edge to edge. "You are late," he said through the speakers, though his mouth barely moved. Rachel raised her gun. "Move away from it." Hayes smiled. "You still think it is an object?" The sphere opened. Not like metal splitting, not like a machine unfolding, but like an eye waking. Inside was not darkness, inside was distance. Jay saw stars that were not stars, cities buried upside down beneath oceans, towers built from bone-white stone, and a sky filled with shapes too large to understand. He saw ancient humans kneeling before the same sphere thousands of years before history began. He saw them offering blood, fire, names, children, kings, and he understood. The sphere had never been a spacecraft. It was a lock. The ruins were not temples. They were seals. Long before human civilization, something had risen from beneath the world and ruled the surface like a god. Early humanity did not defeat it. They buried it. They built prisons around its doors. They erased the story because memory itself gave it strength. Area 51 had not discovered alien technology. It had rediscovered a prison. And by studying it, measuring it, broadcasting it, fearing it, humanity had fed the lock until it opened again. Hayes spread his arms. "They were here before us. They will be here after us. The only question is whether we kneel early or die screaming." Rachel fired. The bullet struck Hayes in the chest. He staggered once, then laughed. The kneeling figures rose. Jay grabbed Rachel and ran down the metal staircase toward the central console. Alarms screamed. The entire chamber shook. Above them, the ceiling cracked, and sand poured from the desert surface nearly a kilometer above. Rachel slammed an access card into the console and began typing commands from memory. "I can reverse the original pulse," she said, "but the system needs a human neural pattern to carry the shutdown through the signal." Jay understood before she finished. "You mean someone has to stay?" Rachel did not look at him. Someone who heard the first broadcast. The figures moved closer. Their limbs bent wrong. Their faces flickered between human and something unfinished. Jay saw Alex Vane among them, the missing streamer, smiling with shattered eyes. He saw soldiers from the helmet footage. He saw scientists from old photographs. They had not died. They had been kept, recorded, echoed. Rachel grabbed Jay's shoulders. "When I start the pulse, run. Do not look back." Jay looked at the sphere. Inside the open eye, something immense pressed closer. Not a monster with claws. Not a creature with skin. A presence. A will older than fear. It saw Jay, and Jay felt his own memories opening like unlocked doors. Childhood. Grief. Ambition. Shame. every secret thought offered up like food. The voice entered him. You wanted truth. Here it is. Jay almost stepped forward. Then he heard Rachel scream his name. The console flashed green. The shutdown sequence began. But Rachel was thrown backward by an invisible force, slamming against the stone floor. The figures were almost on them. Jay crawled to the console and saw the final prompt waiting. Human confirmation required. He placed his hand onto the scanner. Rachel shouted from the floor. Jay, no! He smiled weakly. I built my whole life exposing lies. Might as well end with the truth. The machine pierced his palm. Pain shot through his arm, then into his skull. The chamber vanished. He was inside the signal. He saw Earth from below, not from space, wrapped in glowing lines connecting every ancient prison site. Nevada, Egypt, Antarctica, Siberia, the Pacific, the Amazon. One by one, the lines turned red. One by one, doors began opening. Jay forced the pulse backward. He pushed every image, every whisper, every nightmare back into the sphere. The figures screamed without mouths. The chamber lights exploded. The open eye narrowed. For one impossible second, Jay saw the thing behind the door clearly. It was not alien. It was not demon. It was hunger-wearing intelligence. Then the sphere shut. The shockwave threw Rachel across the platform. The kneeling figures collapsed into dust. The red lights died. The tunnels stopped breathing. Silence returned so suddenly it felt violent. Rachel woke minutes later under emergency lights. Jay was gone. The console was destroyed. The sphere hovered again at the center of the chamber, black and silent as if nothing had happened. Only one thing had changed. A message had been burned into the stone floor beneath it, written in English with impossible precision. One voice remains inside. Rachel escaped before military reinforcements arrived. The official report blamed an underground reactor malfunction. News channels mocked the internet panic for a week, then moved on. Governments denied the global blackout had any connection to Nevada. The leaked signal disappeared from every platform. Jay Mercer was declared missing, then presumed dead. His channel was deleted. His name became another conspiracy joke. But 3 months later, at 2:13 a.m., a new audio file appeared online for exactly 11 seconds before vanishing from the internet forever. Only 37 people managed to download it. The file contained no static, no warning, no ancient voice. Just Jay whispering from somewhere impossibly far away. I closed the first door. There are 6 more. And beneath his voice, almost too quiet to hear, something else whispered back. We can wait.